And that's why this movement is so important. That's why your work is so important, because we are headed towards that cliff. And we will go over it. Just ask anybody in Greece. We will go over that cliff if we keep going the direction we're going. And why you need to do what you can to make sure that those leaders up in Washington, those leaders in Sacramento, don't take us there, because that's where the ones that are there now, that's where they're taking us. Your job is to get rid of those and get people in that will. So unions are good when they're needed. If you had good bosses, if you didn't have the human factor of greed, you wouldn't need unions. And we can talk about this a whole lot more. I love this stuff. But the history and all that stuff. And talk about Ford paying their workers 3 times as much as the prevailing wage, and somehow the union guys come in and unionize. So anyways. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with unions. What I have a problem with is the socialized agenda behind the union bosses that sacrifice their workers, sacrifice their members for that agenda of power. And I have a problem when we don't see eye to eye on the common goal. Like I said, if we look at common goals, and that's a lot about how I work, I try to find the common goal that we have. When you talk about unions and management, the common goal is a profitable business. It's just a matter of understanding that and now working towards it however you're going to do it. So as your congressman, that's each issue that we're coming up with. I'm going to try to find that common goal and work towards it with the parties on either side. So we're all on the same side, just discussing how to get there instead of on opposite sides, making life miserable for everybody. Does that answer your question, Andy?
Thank you.
You bet. Yes, sir. Nick.
I had occasion to be in Chicago last week, and there were 2 movements to impeach Barack Obama.
Yeah! Now you're talking about
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. We are 2 years into his presidency, almost 2 years. There's, the ideas of he wasn't born here, he's not an American citizen, he's not constitutional to be a president. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go off here a little bit and say, if that is true, that should have been discovered about 2 years before he ran for president by the press. That was where that should have been found out. It should have been done deal. Either he's a citizen and he's running for president, or he's not and he's done. The press didn't do their job because they fell in love with him. Now, I don't have an opinion. I mean, I heard something that he had 2 articles in the Hawaii paper that announced his birth. If that's true, he's a citizen, no problem. But I'm going to tell you this, and then there's other movements afoot of impeach Obama. I just saw a small YouTube video of somebody, not the birther people, but a different idea. We need to get rid of him because of the oil spill, because of his failure on the oil spill. It is not my position whatsoever to impeach Obama. And, sir, there are things we will disagree on. But here is why. And I'll tell you why I don't believe that is the right way to go. Because it is better to impeach his ideas and his philosophies and the way he is running government than it is to impeach the man. And the way we impeach his ideas and his governing philosophy is by winning in November 10 and winning again in November of 12. It is better to reject him at the polls and defeat what he stands for resoundingly than it is to fire him on a technicality. Because you fire him on a technicality and then you get Biden. Do you think Biden's going to do anything different? At least Obama sounds good when he says these things. And then you'll have the sympathy vote in 10 and 12. And we'll have Biden again. It is better to impeach his ideas at the polls than try to do it through the courts. And that is my stance on that. I certainly feel your passion, but that is my stance. Yes?
A lot of people don't realize when the health care bill was passed and this new pending financial legislation, is a large part of the bill actually doesn't exist. It's passed and then is ready to be rewritten so that they can actually create this law. Most of it's not actually created yet.
2,700 pages and there's more to come?
Well, yes, and that's the key, is that they were talking about this morning, is that the actual legislation only provides opportunity to write the rest of the legislation, which is where all the unintended consequences come from. How do we get the right people on the Senate Banking Committee? Get rid of Charlie Rangel, get rid of Chuck Schumer, get rid of all of these people that really only want to support big business, because those big banks you're talking about, we are in the anti-monopoly government that we've got that is creating the largest monopoly ever created in the world, because we're going to end up with 4 banks. And that's it. And the 4 banks are putting all the little banks out of business. How do we as people just even on the street understand that and what's going on?
Yeah, and you're talking about the banking bill, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and it goes back to the polls. I mean, easy answer, it goes back to the polls. We need to elect Republican majorities. Not just Republican majorities. Because I tell you what, right now I stand here today, and this is, I think, the first time publicly over a loudspeaker I'm saying this. But I am not going to be elected to go to Washington and become just a rounded out vote to a Republican majority, whatever those guys that were there during the 2000s spending like Democrats want to do. I'm going there to do the things that we're talking about, the things that I'm being elected on. And as a large freshman class that will be coming to Congress, I plan to be a leader of that freshman class to do the things that we are getting elected on. We're just not going to round out majorities for somebody else to take us in the same direction. I guarantee you that. So, first, at the polling place, we swap these out. Second, do the things you can as a citizen. Let them know. Rise up. Protest. Write letters. Let them know we don't want this anymore. And get the buzz going. Because I tell you what, the people sitting on the couch, they don't realize what you realize. They don't know what you know. They think everything's fine. That's why we're at where we're at, because for 80 years our politicians up there have been failing us, failing our trust, and letting this great American country get on that path towards a cliff. And we've been sitting here fat, dumb, and happy, and that's a pilot term, forgive me. But we've been here fat, dumb, and happy, letting them do whatever they want and not paying attention. And in the pilot world, when we refer to that, things go wrong, engines fall off, we lose electrical systems, things go wrong and we're not prepared. So we've got to get off the couch, we've got to do our things. Now, when we get these Republican majorities, things like the health care bill, things like the banking bill, things like cap and trade, if it passes the Senate, these different big laws that are huge government power grabs of your life and the economy and control. What we can do first is replace them. We can't just repeal them. We have to replace cap and trade with a real energy policy that includes nuclear energy, finding more oil where we can, wherever we can, relying on homegrown natural gas to replace a lot of our oil dependency, a lot more other things. We replace cap and trade with a real national energy policy. When we replace the health care bill, it's not 2,700 pages of government takeover, it's about 200 pages of going after fraud, the $100 billion of fraud in Medicare that's wasted and lost your taxpayers' dollars to criminals. We go over tort reform. We go after tort reform, number 2 priority, so that your doctor is paying attention to you and your issues and not the lawyers and making sure they're satisfied. Those are the things we do in a health care bill. And with a banking industry, we go back and we put in smart regulations in place to make sure that the banks don't invest riskily with your savings, that they aren't part of the problem of these bubbles that keep happening. That's the smart regulation we do. It should be a bill about 100 pages long and not 2,000 pages long. It gets government in its regulatory referee place it should be, and it takes government out of the playing field of these banks and any other industry. Can you say cars? Can you say, automobiles, right? All the other ones. It gets them out of running things. It makes the rules to play by. It doesn't play. Does that help? Yes, ma'am.